Okay, so I kind of want to talk about this concept of socialization, attractiveness, and Kodak Black. So, Kodak Black is like a physically unattractive male, right? Like, but he does these things that are very interesting where he puts on these clothes and he says, "Oh, my clothes are expensive. My clothes are expensive. My clothes are expensive, so you're supposed to like me. Oh, I'm still stylish, so you're supposed to like me." Um, that is this concept called flaunting. Okay. So flaunting is this idea where you say like if I put on an expensive dress, then I'm wearing an expensive dress. Okay. That's what that means. You might not know that it's an expensive dress because you might be poor, right? So I could be trying to flaunt my social class in front of you, but there would have to be like this shared acknowledgement that, like, first of all, I'm richer than you and you know it. Like, that's not always the case. That's sort of the same experience with like feminization and social cues. So, one thing that, and I've been coming across this so much in the last year, I don't know what it is, but bisexual men keep like making their way to me, almost like they're trying to learn how to navigate society through me from my own gendered experience. Like, I am very female, but I present gender neutral. And the reason that I do that is because I try to appear like a lesbian so that I do not attract as much male attention. It is a survival strategy that Julia has taught me, which works really well. That's why I do the French braids, and they don't, you know what I mean? Well, maybe you don't know, but I know. Anyway, but this is why there's this whole move from women to appear more androgynous and for men to appear more feminine. It's like this androgynous state so that you're kind of like genderless. This has nothing to do with the way that you have sex, right? So, like, I could appear female, but be sort of have masculine energy, and then have sex like a dom or like a submissive, like whatever I choose, that would be my sort of like situation. But, or I could appear very femme, sort of convey this sort of like delicacy nature and like flaunt my femininity to you, and then you might get this impression that I am like kind and naive, right? That could be a state of being for you. I can sort of exploit all of those points of views based on what I believe you believe about me. Or you could just ask me and I can tell you, right? Both of those things exist at the same time. I think with so many factors at hand, so we've got like race, class, gender, sex, all those things, and you're trying to like understand another person and where they lay on the spectrum. There's a certain like naivety and innocence that you have when you have not done certain things, but you know they exist. It's kind of like, how can you say it? This is why I do this a lot. Like, I ask people about stuff that I would never do, and I ask them to describe it to me. I'm like, I would never do that, but that is something that they like to do. So then they describe it, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. How do you feel about that? And then they say, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. That has nothing to do with like consent, which is a whole other thing. Like, I can consent, I can say, yes, I would like to do that, blah, 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 or no, I would not like to do that, blah, 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 blah. Either way, though, that has nothing to do with like my innocence, my purity, my sex, my choice. All of those things are different, and all of those things are very different from my womanhood. I think this is where it's very strange to have so many people in the LGBTQIA ++ community kind of like trying to step into womanhood as though we have similarities when we do not. There's just like biologic stuff that women have that like men don't.
Attention on the concourse.
And so like
Delta Airlines flight
it doesn't matter how many sort of like behaviors or feminization that you can do, like women still have to sit with their own,
Alpha 26 doors are closing.
how do you say, women have to sit with their own delicacy and their own inability to kind of like fight off males who rape. That's the thing. You like fighting off males who rape is very difficult. They're just so awful. Yeah, no, they're just so awful. And I would say like one thing that you can kind of, how do you say, one thing you can kind of understand, well, maybe you can't understand it, but like one thing I am aware and familiar of is like male aggression, as in like men who are emotionally not very intelligent and therefore use like aggression and manipulative techniques to sort of convince you to do one thing or the other. And all of that persuasiveness, I suppose, could be useful for them in getting what they want. But in terms of women, I think it's useful to like know it exists and then know that like you have power in that. And what I mean by that is like you can say no to stuff. You could just say no to like spending time with them. You could say no to chatting with them. You could say no to going out with them. Just say no across the board. But like all women have that capacity to do that. I do think that there's this weird thing amongst men where they do this thing. This girl will only do this with me. Oh, this is so special with me, as the, you know, and sometimes that's the case. I don't know everyone's personal story. But there's a lot of like, you know, sort of habit tracking where it's like, oh, if I do this, she's gonna do that. Or if I say this, she's just trying to encourage people to do shit. And so I've seen this a lot in society where so then women will like repeat behavior to encourage other people to believe like that they are like this or that. I will say, as a pretty like mature person, as in like I've had a lot of good sex and I know what it is, and it's like people who are good at sex don't do that. Those are tactics of prudes, like who just they're basically trying to game you for like resources. Like people who do those sort of things, you know, it's like, only say this, I text back 27 minutes later, and then I like disappear for 15. Like people who do that are just like literally just trying to game you for resources. People who already have resources don't need to do that because they already have the resource. So they could just really do what they want. This is why most of us don't talk to y'all, but that's another point. So then, like, if you get past the point where you need to do like all this manipulative bullshit to get attention from another person, you could literally just ask them what they want. Right? This is where you mature into Bumble. So you could get on Bumble for like 5 seconds and be like, yes, no, and you really know, because like you can see by the way that somebody presents themselves if you would be interested or not. But maybe that's where I personally am, and everyone else is like not there yet. It takes some time. But you too can get there. I just want to say that.